The airigale of the unknown. The vast expanse of deep space stretched endlessly before Captain Thilura Vex as she stared out the viewport of Coalition Station Zenith. The blue-skinned Altarian drummed her slender fingers against the railing, violet eyes scanning the sea of stars that had remained unchanged for centuries. The Galactic Coalition, a peaceful alliance of 17 sentient species, had maintained order in this sector for over 300 cycles. No wars, no major conflicts, just the occasional pirate or smuggler to break the monotony. Another quiet shift, Captain. Lieutenant Kraz approached, his reptilian scales gleaming under the soft light of the command center. Too quiet, Vex replied, though she meant nothing by it. Peace had been good for the galaxy. The Coalition's technological advancements had cured diseases, solved resource scarcity, and created prosperity across thousands of worlds. Yet something about today felt different, a subtle uneasiness that she couldn't shake. Her instincts proved correct when the proximity alarms suddenly blared to life. "Unknown object detected at the edge of sensor range," reported the sensor operator, frantically working at her console. It just appeared, Captain. No warp signature, no jump distortion." "Show me," Vex ordered, moving swiftly to the main view screen. The image materialized before them, a massive vessel of unfamiliar design, its hull a dark, shifting metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Nearly 3 kilometers in length, it dwarfed even the Coalition's largest dreadnoughts. "What in the 7 moons?" Lieutenant Kraz whispered. "I've never seen anything like it." "Scan it," Vex ordered, her voice steady despite the cold dread settling in her stomach. "And open a communication channel." "Scans are inconclusive, Captain," the technician replied after several tense moments. "Our sensors can't penetrate its hull. No energy signatures, no life signs, nothing. It's as if it's not fully here." "A phantom," murmured Vex, the word escaping her lips before she could stop it. "Communications are being transmitted on all frequencies, but there's no response," reported the communications officer. Vex stared at the vessel, a growing sense of unease spreading through her. "Alert Coalition Command. Priority Alpha. We have first contact with an unknown entity." Within hours, Coalition Station Zenith became the epicenter of frantic activity. 3 military vessels arrived to establish a perimeter around the Phantom ship, which had remained motionless since its appearance. Senior officials and scientists from across the Coalition poured in, eager to study this unprecedented phenomenon. Admiral Torek, the grizzled Vantari who commanded the Coalition's defense forces, stood beside Vex in the observation deck, his 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the vessel. "Has it done anything?" he asked, his gravelly voice low. "Nothing, Admiral. It just exists," Vex replied. "We've tried every scan, every communication protocol in our database. It doesn't respond." "I don't like it," Torek growled. "Nothing this size appears without a reason." As if responding to his words, the Phantom ship suddenly emitted a pulse of energy that washed over the station. Lights flickered momentarily before stabilizing. "What was that?" Vex demanded, turning to the nearest technician. "Some kind of scanning beam, Captain," the technician replied, checking his instruments. "It passed through our shields like they weren't even there." Admiral Torek's face darkened. "It's scanning us. Learning about us." "Sir," called out a junior officer, her voice trembling slightly. "We've detected activity inside the vessel. Something is awakening." The view screen shifted to show a section of the Phantom ship where portions of its hull were shifting, realigning like pieces of a massive puzzle. A hangar bay opened, revealing a darkness that seemed deeper than the void of space itself. "Launch reconnaissance drones," Torek ordered. "I want to know what's in there." 3 small drones detached from one of the Coalition vessels, sleek and equipped with the most advanced stealth technology available. They approached the Phantom ship cautiously, transmitting data back to the station in real time. The tension in the command center was palpable as the drones entered the open hangar bay. For several minutes, they transmitted images of vast, empty chambers constructed of the same light-absorbing material as the hull. Then, without warning, their signals terminated simultaneously. "Drones lost," reported the technician. Last readings showed no weapon signatures, no energy discharges. They just stopped existing. "Impossible," Torek muttered, but the evidence was clear. Before anyone could respond, a new alert sounded. "Admiral, Captain," called the sensor operator, "we're detecting a small object emerging from the Phantom vessel." On the view screen, they watched as a spherical probe roughly 2 meters in diameter exited the hangar bay and moved steadily toward Coalition Station Zenith. "Shields to maximum," Torek ordered. "Target that probe with all defensive systems." "Wait," Vex interjected. "It might be attempting communication." The probe halted just outside the station's shield perimeter. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then a beam of light shot from the probe directly into the station's communication array. "We're receiving a data transmission," announced the communications officer. "It's enormous. Terabytes of information flooding our systems." "Isolated," Torek barked. "Could be a cyber attack." "No, sir," the officer replied, sounding perplexed. "It's not attacking our systems. It appears to be historical data. Star charts, cultural records, technological schematics, and it's all in an ancient language." "What language?" Vex asked, leaning over the officer's shoulder to look at the streaming data. The officer looked up, confusion written across her features. "According to our linguistic database, it's human." A profound silence fell over the command center. Humanity was little more than a legend in the modern galaxy, a pioneering species said to have reached far into the stars before mysteriously vanishing over 500 cycles ago. Their existence was taught in historical academies, but most consider their legacy exaggerated or mythologized by time. "That's impossible," Torek said, breaking the silence. "Humans have been extinct for centuries." "The translator is certain." "Admiral," the officer insisted, "this is human language, and the data, it's like a historical archive." What would a phantom ship be doing with human archives? Vex wondered aloud, her mind racing with possibilities. The answer came 3 hours later from Dr. Naylan, the Coalition's foremost xenorchaeologist, who had been hastily summoned to analyze the transmitted data. "It's not just carrying human archives," she explained to the assembled Coalition leadership in the station's conference room. "Based on the technical specifications in the data, and comparing them with the scans we've managed to take, the Phantom ship itself appears to be of human origin." Murmurs of disbelief spread through the room. "That's not possible," Admiral Torek insisted. "Humanity never built vessels of this scale or capability. Their technology was advanced for their time, but nothing like this." "That's just it, Admiral," Dr. Naylan continued, her eyes bright with excitement. "The data suggests this ship wasn't built during the known human era. It was constructed after their supposed extinction, using technologies that evolved far beyond what we thought they had achieved." "Are you suggesting humans didn't go extinct?" Vex asked, struggling to comprehend the implications. "I'm suggesting," Dr. Naylan replied carefully, "that what we're witnessing may be the legacy of a human civilization that continued to evolve somewhere beyond our knowledge, perhaps outside the galaxy itself." As if to punctuate her theory, the station's alarms blared once more. "Captain, Admiral," came the urgent voice of the sensor operator over the comm system. "We're detecting multiple spatial anomalies forming throughout the sector. More ships are appearing." The conference room's display showed tactical feeds from across Coalition space. One by one, phantom ships similar to the first were emerging from nowhere, near major population centers, strategic resources, and military installations. "By the cosmic void," whispered Torek, "it's an invasion force." Coalition forces mobilized with impressive speed. Within 12 hours, defensive fleets had assembled near each phantom vessel. Yet none of the ships had taken hostile action, They simply hovered in position, silent and watchful. On Zenith Station, Captain Vex and her team had been working tirelessly to decipher more of the human data transmission. What they discovered sent shockwaves through Coalition leadership. "It's not just an archive," Vex explained to Admiral Torek as they reviewed the findings. "It's a message. The Phantom Fleet. They call themselves the Vanguard. They're not invaders. They're returning." "Returning from where?" Torek demanded. "From the void between galaxies," Vex replied. "According to this data, when the Coalition's predecessor, the Hegemony, began their expansion 500 cycles ago, they encountered early human colonies. But instead of peaceful contact, the Hegemony saw them as competition." She pulled up historical images from the data. Devastating attacks on human settlements, systematic destruction of their infrastructure. The Hegemony tried to exterminate them. She continued, her voice tight with emotion. But a portion of humanity escaped. They didn't just hide. They left the galaxy entirely, venturing into intergalactic space. And now they've returned. Torek concluded, his expression grim. "But why now? After all this time?" Before Vex could answer, the station rocked violently. Red emergency lights flooded the room as alarms wailed. "What was that?" Torek demanded, steadying himself against a console. "Coalition fleet has opened fire on the Phantom vessels." "Admiral," reported a communications officer. "Direct orders from Coalition High Command." "What?" Torek roared. "I gave no such order." On the main view screen, they watched in horror as Coalition warships launched volleys of antimatter torpedoes at the nearest Phantom ship. The weapons struck the dark hull and simply vanished, absorbed without effect. "Oh no," Vex whispered, scanning through the human data frantically. "Admiral, we need to cease fire immediately. These ships, they're designed with adaptive defense systems. Any attack against them." Her warning came too late. The Phantom ship that had absorbed the Coalition's attack began to transform. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, and massive weapon arrays emerged from previously smooth sections of hull. "Get me a channel to all Coalition vessels," Torek shouted. "Stand down immediately." But the order came too late. The Phantom ship released a pulse of energy unlike anything their sensors had ever recorded. When it reached the Coalition vessels, their shields simply failed, as if the fundamental laws of physics that governed them had been temporarily suspended. With their defenses neutralized, the Coalition ships were helpless as secondary beams struck with surgical precision, disabling their weapon systems and engines without destroying the vessels themselves. Across the sector, the same scene played out wherever Coalition forces had engaged the Phantom fleet. Within minutes, the most powerful military force in the galaxy had been neutralized without a single fatality. In the stunned silence that followed, every communication system throughout Coalition space activated simultaneously. On screens, holographic displays, and neural interfaces, the same message appeared. A human face, male, with features that seemed both ancient and timeless. "People of the Galactic Coalition," the figure spoke, its voice resonating with quiet authority. "We are the vanguard of humanity. 500 cycles ago, your predecessors drove us from our homes among these stars. We did not perish. We evolved. We waited. And now we have returned, not for vengeance, but for justice." The figure's eyes seemed to look directly into the soul of every being watching. "Your attack on our vessels has been neutralized. No lives were taken. This restraint is deliberate, a demonstration of both our power and our purpose. We seek not war, but recognition, acknowledgement of historical truth, and a place once more among the stars that were our birthright." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in shocked silence. On Zenith Station, Captain Vex turned to Admiral Torek, her expression a mixture of awe and trepidation. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Torek stared at the Phantom ship floating serenely outside, its weapons now retracted, once again a silent sentinel. Now, he replied grimly, we face a truth our civilization has buried for 5 centuries. Humanity has returned, and the galaxy will never be the same. HFY of DDE forgotten. The aftermath of the Vanguard's demonstration left the Galactic Coalition in disarray. On the emergency command deck of Zenith Station, representatives from all 17 Coalition species argued bitterly, their voices rising above one another in a cacophony of fear and accusation. Who authorized the attack? Demanded Counselor Jen, her iridescent wings fluttering in agitation. Our entire defense fleet has been neutralized without firing a single effective shot. The order came directly from Chancellor Drav's office, replied Admiral Torek, his 4 eyes narrowed with suspicion. Yet the Chancellor claims he issued no such command. Captain Vex stood silently by the viewport, watching the Phantom ship, the human Vanguard vessel, as it hovered motionless against the backdrop of stars. In the 18 hours since the confrontation, it had made no further moves, issued no further communications. Yet its presence loomed larger than any threat the Coalition had faced in its 3-century history. Captain, called a junior analyst, breaking Vex from her contemplation. We've completed the full analysis of the human archives they transmitted. You need to see this. The central holographic display flickered to life, showing a timeline that stretched back over 5 centuries. The gathered officials fell silent as the history of humanity unfolded before them, not the sanitized version taught in Coalition academies, but the brutal, unvarnished truth. According to these records, the analyst explained, humanity was not a minor species that simply died out. They were systematically targeted by the hegemony, the predecessor to our Coalition, in what they called the suppression campaign. Images appeared showing devastating orbital bombardments of human colonies, biological weapons deployed against civilian populations, and mass executions. Several Coalition officials turned away, unable to watch. The remaining humans, roughly 30 million, escaped in a fleet of generation ships. The analyst continued. They traveled beyond the galaxy's edge, into the intergalactic void, a journey no other known species had ever attempted. But that was 500 cycles ago. Counselor Jen interjected. What happened to them? How did they develop technology that could neutralize our most advanced defense systems? Dr. Nayland stepped forward, excitement barely contained beneath her professional demeanor. This is where it gets fascinating. The human generation ships encountered something in the void, what they simply call the expanse. It appears to be a region where the laws of physics operate differently. Different physics. Admiral Torek scoffed. That's impossible. Not different physics, Dr. Nayland corrected. Different expressions of the same fundamental laws. In the expanse, they discovered principles of quantum manipulation that allowed them to develop technology centuries beyond our understanding. And now they've returned, Vex said quietly. The question is, why now? After all this time? The answer came from an unexpected source. A young communications specialist cleared his throat nervously. Captain, we've been analyzing the transmission patterns of the Phantom Fleet. They've been broadcasting a signal, so subtle our systems initially filtered it out as background radiation. It's directed at something buried beneath Coronis IV. Coronis IV, a Coalition mining colony established just 50 cycles ago on the Outer Rim. The revelation sent a chill through the room. What's on Coronis IV? Vex demanded. According to the mining surveys, nothing but Tibernium ore, replied the specialist. But we cross-referenced with the human archives, and the display shifted to show geological scans of the planet. There's something there. A structure buried 2 kilometers beneath the surface. It appears to have been there for at least 500 cycles. They left something behind, Dr. Nayland whispered. Something important enough to return for after all this time. Admiral Torek's communicator chimed urgently. His expression darkened as he listened to the message. The Chancellor has ordered military action, he announced grimly. The Coalition's reserve fleet is mobilizing. They plan to destroy the Phantom vessels while they remain inactive. "That's madness," Vex exclaimed. "Didn't they see what happened to the first attack force? The Chancellor believes the Vanguard expended significant energy in their defensive action. He thinks they're vulnerable now." Torik's tone made it clear he disagreed with this assessment. Vex made a decision. "We need to establish direct communication with the Vanguard now, and we need a team on Coronis IV to investigate that structure before this escalates further." Within an hour, 2 missions were underway. Captain Vex led a diplomatic delegation toward the Phantom vessel in a small, unarmed shuttle, while Dr. Nayland headed a research team bound for Coronis IV aboard the science vessel, Empirical Truth. As Vex's shuttle approached the massive Vanguard ship, she fought to keep her composure. The vessel's hull seemed to shift subtly as they drew closer, its surface rippling like dark water. "We're being scanned," reported her pilot, voice tense. A section of the hull suddenly transformed, opening into a small docking bay that seemed to have been created specifically to accommodate their shuttle. "An invitation," Vex murmured. "Take us in." Inside the Phantom vessel, they found an environment unlike anything in Coalition experience. The interior spaces seemed to reconfigure themselves as they watched, corridors forming and dissolving like flowing liquid, yet solid beneath their feet. The air was perfectly calibrated for Altarian physiology, Vex's native atmosphere. "They're adapting the environment for us," observed Lieutenant Kraz, his reptilian eyes wide with wonder. They were led deeper into the vessel not by guards or guides, but by subtle changes in lighting that directed their path. Finally, they entered a chamber that expanded around them, its walls displaying a panoramic view of the galaxy that was impossibly detailed and beautiful. A figure appeared before them, the same human male from the transmission, his form semi-translucent and glowing softly. "Captain Thilara Vex," he greeted her. "I am Nexus, speaking on behalf of the human collective." "Are you real?" Vex asked, unable to stop herself. The figure smiled. "In a manner of speaking. My consciousness exists within the quantum substrate of this vessel, an integration of human minds that once existed in physical form. What you see is a projection, a simplification your mind can comprehend." "Your uploaded consciousnesses," Vex struggled to understand. "That term is sufficient for now," Nexus replied. "When humanity fled into the expanse, we discovered that survival required adaptation beyond the limits of organic existence. Some of us chose to transcend physical form. And the others?" Kraz asked. "They continued, evolved differently. The human species exists in many forms now, both physical and non-physical." Nexus gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic images of strange, beautiful vessels and structures floating in an alien void. "We built civilizations in spaces your people cannot yet imagine." "Then why return?" Vex asked, finding her diplomatic voice again. "Why now, after 5 centuries?" Nexus's expression became grave. "Because the warning system activated. The seed on Coronis IV has awakened." Meanwhile, on Coronis IV, Dr. Nayland and her team had discovered the entrance to the buried structure, a massive door of unknown alloy that had remained hidden beneath the planet's surface for centuries. Despite their most advanced scanning technology, they could detect nothing of what lay beyond. "The composition is unlike anything in our material science database," reported one of her assistants. "It appears to absorb all forms of energy we direct at it." "How do we open it?" Nayland wondered aloud. As if in response, a section of the door began to reshape itself, forming symbols that glowed with soft blue light, an ancient human language. One of the team's linguists studied the symbols. "It says, 'Speak the name of the betrayed, and passage shall be granted.'" "The betrayed?" Nayland repeated, puzzled. Then understanding dawned. Humanity. They were betrayed by the hegemony. She stepped forward and spoke clearly. "Humanity." The massive door remained motionless. Not the correct answer. "Terra," tried the linguist, using the ancient name for the human homeworld. Still nothing. Nayland thought deeply, reviewing what they had learned from the archives. Earth, she said finally, the name of their home planet in their primary language. The door responded immediately, splitting along invisible seams and retracting into the surrounding rock with a deep rumbling sound. Beyond lay a chamber bathed in soft blue light, and at its center stood a crystalline structure that pulsed with inner radiance. "The seed," whispered Nalan, approaching cautiously. As she drew closer, the crystal's pulsing intensified. Suddenly, it projected a holographic image, a human female dressed in what the archives identified as a uniform. "Verification protocol initiated," the hologram stated. "Accessing coalition databases. Temporal drift confirmed at 512 standard cycles. Activation parameters met. I am Admiral Diana Chen, last commander of the Human Defense Force. If you are viewing this message, then humanity's fail-safe has been triggered." Back on the Vanguard vessel, Nexus was explaining the same truth to Captain Vex and her team. "When we fled, we knew the hegemony would attempt to erase us from history," he said. "So we left behind seeds, quantum-entangled receivers that would monitor the development of galactic civilization after our departure." "Monitor for what?" Vex asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. "For signs that the same aggressive expansion that targeted humanity was being turned against other emerging species," Nexus replied solemnly. "The seeds were programmed to alert us if the pattern repeated." On Coronis IV, Admiral Chen's hologram continued her message. "The seed has detected a critical threshold of aggression against 3 developing sentient species in the past 50 cycles. The Coalition's expansion into their territories matches the pattern recognition parameters established from our own extinction event." Dr. Nalan's team exchanged uncomfortable glances. The Procyon, the Vectari, and the Novan cloud mines, all primitive species whose territories had been annexed by the Coalition in recent decades. None had been granted representation in Coalition governance. "We did not return seeking vengeance," Nexus told Captain Vex. "We returned because you are repeating our history. The Coalition has become what once destroyed us, an expanding power that views difference as threat, potential as competition." "But we're not the hegemony," Vex protested. "We value peace, cooperation. Among those you deem equals," Nexus interrupted gently. "Yet your record shows 17 member species and over 40 protectorate species who have no voice in your governance." Before Vex could respond, Lieutenant Kraz received an urgent communication. "Captain," he said, his voice tight with alarm. "The Coalition Reserve Fleet has arrived. They're positioning for attack." Above Zenith Station, 30 Coalition warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their weapon systems powering up as they moved into formation around the Phantom vessels. Chancellor Drav's face appeared on communication screens across the fleet. "The Coalition will not be intimidated by these invaders," he announced. "We will demonstrate that our sovereignty over this galaxy is absolute." On the Vanguard ship, Nexus observed the developing situation with sad resignation. 5 centuries, and still the same fear of the different drives you to destruction. "Can you stop them without harming them?" Vex asked desperately. "Like before." "The energy required for non-lethal neutralization is immense," Nexus replied. "The first demonstration depleted our defensive reserves significantly. A second would require more drastic measures." Understanding dawned on Vex. "That's what the Chancellor is counting on. He believes you won't destroy our ships." "That assumption is partly correct," Nexus acknowledged. "We do not wish to cause death. But there are other options." On Coronis IV, the hologram of Admiral Chen had revealed the seed's true purpose. This installation contains the complete genetic library of humanity, along with our technological and cultural heritage. It was placed here not merely as a warning system, but as a contingency, should our exile into the expanse prove fatal to our species. A backup, Dr. Nalan realized. "You preserve your entire species." "Yes," the hologram confirmed. "And now that the warning parameters have been met, the seed has begun broadcasting to the Vanguard. They will return. They will evaluate, and they will judge whether this galaxy is ready for the truth. As the Coalition fleet prepared to fire, something unexpected happened. The Phantom ships began to move, not to attack, but to arrange themselves in a precise formation. At their center, space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a swirling vortex of energy unlike anything Coalition scientists had ever observed. "What are they doing?" Chancellor Drav demanded from his command ship. On the Vanguard vessel, Nexus turned to Captain Vex. "We are opening a gateway to the expanse. Your Chancellor has made his choice. Now we offer one to the rest of your civilization." The swirling vortex stabilized, revealing a glimpse of something beyond. Strange celestial bodies, impossible geometries, and distant structures of breathtaking scale and beauty. "That's where humanity has been all this time?" Vex asked, awestruck. "One of our domains, yes," Nexus replied. "We have established ourselves in spaces between the galaxies, where the fundamental forces allow for different possibilities." Throughout Coalition space, every communication device simultaneously activated. Nexus's voice reached every citizen, every species in their native language. "People of the Galactic Coalition, 500 cycles ago, humanity was driven from this galaxy. We survived. We evolved. We have watched your civilization grow from the ashes of the hegemony that sought our destruction. Now we return not as conquerors, but as witnesses." Images flooded every screen. The Coalition's treatment of protectorate species, the suppression of their cultures, the exploitation of their resources. Alongside these, the historical record of humanity's similar treatment at the hands of the hegemony. "The pattern repeats," Nexus continued. "Those with power expanding without regard for those without. We offer a choice: continue this cycle of dominance, or embrace a new possibility." The gateway between the Phantom ships pulsed, growing larger. "We invite representatives from all species of this galaxy, Coalition members and protectorates alike, to visit our civilization, to learn what became of humanity, and to see what cooperation truly means when freed from fear and dominance." Chancellor Drab's voice cut through the broadcast on military channels. "Fire. Destroy these interlopers." But across the Coalition fleet, weapon systems suddenly powered down. Crew members stood at their stations, refusing orders. The images transmitted by the Vanguard had affected them deeply, revealing truths about their own civilization that many had suspected but few had acknowledged. On her science vessel orbiting Coronis IV, Dr. Nayland made a decision. "Take us to the gateway," she ordered. "I volunteer as the first representative." Similar decisions were being made across Coalition space as ships from various worlds changed course, heading toward the Vanguard's invitation. Back on the Vanguard vessel, Captain Vex watched as Coalition unity fractured, not into chaos, but into choice. "What happens now?" she asked Nexus. "Now," the human consciousness replied, "the real work begins. Healing takes longer than harm. Trust requires more effort than fear, but we have time." "And if we fail?" Vex asked softly. "If we cannot change?" Nexus's form seemed to grow more solid, more present. "Then humanity will remain a legend in this galaxy, a warning of what happens when fear drives expansion. But we believe otherwise. We believe that all sentient life, given the chance, chooses connection over conquest." As ships from across the Coalition approached the gateway, the Phantom vessels began to shift once more. But this time, they didn't ready weapons or defenses. Instead, they transformed, their dark surfaces becoming transparent, revealing the true nature of the Vanguard fleet. Within each vessel were gardens, libraries, living spaces, entire ecosystems sustained in harmony. And moving among them were figures both familiar and strange. Humans in their evolved forms, some still recognizably similar to their ancestors, others transformed by centuries of adaptation to new environments. "We did not come to replace your civilization with ours," Nexus told Captain Vex as she stared in wonder at the revealed truth. We came to remind you of a choice your predecessors made 5 centuries ago, a choice between fear and possibility. We chose possibility then, venturing into the unknown, rather than fighting a war we could not win. He turned to face her fully, his holographic eyes meeting hers with unexpected warmth. Now we invite your people to make the same choice, not between submission and resistance, but between isolation and connection. Between being alone in the dark, or joining a community that spans spaces you have yet to imagine. As the first coalition representatives entered the gateway, Chancellor Drab's voice faded into irrelevance. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, not through conquest or capitulation, but through the quiet power of truth revealed and choice offered. Captain Vex stood at the threshold between worlds, looking back at the galaxy she had sworn to protect and forward to possibilities beyond imagination. Behind her lay the comfort of the known. Ahead, the promise of the infinite. She took a step forward,